Hello guys, and welcome to this tutorial. So in this video we're going to be covering how to use Flutter to build a real-time chat application with Socket.io, Nodejs and Express.js, and everything is going to be with Flutter on the client side. So if this is your first time of watching my video or you've come across this video, please do make sure you hit that like button and also the subscribe button so that YouTube can show this video to many people that are willing to learn Flutter tutorials on YouTube. So like I said earlier, we're going to be building a Flutter full stack chat application where a user can be able to send a message to another user and also to other different users. It's not like a chat room, it's just a unique chat. So right now, let's just go ahead and go through some examples. So I already have my application open here, and this is exactly the one that we worked on this tutorial. So if you watch on the last ending of this video, you will see me talk about it. So I'm going to log in with already existing users I created. So I have sam@gmail.com and I'm going to log in with sam@gmail.com. So here I have two users. So these two users are being shown on my MongoDB comparts. So I just logged in with this user. We have james@gmail.com and also nadine@gmail.com. So on my cell phone, I'm going to log in with james@gmail.com as well. So we have james@gmail.com and I'm going to put the password. So right now I'm logged in. I'm going to try to chat with Nadine first before I chat with James. So I can say hi Nadine. So I can send this message. Because Nadine is not actually using this message, Nadine won't be able to receive this message. But whenever Nadine opens this application on her own, and clicks on her chat, she will be able to see this message. So right here you could see I'm on Sam's chat and the message I sent to Nadine is not actually showing on Sam's chat. So on Sam's chat now, I'm with my cell phone. I'm going to write hi Sam. You could see hi Sam immediately reflects, and also on my phone you could see it's actually showing there on my phone. So my phone recording kind of paused, so it's actually showing here on my phone. So I can now say hello James. So immediately I send this message, you could see immediately it reflects on my phone, and whenever I go back on my phone and go to Nadine chat, you could see because I don't have a conversation with Nadine, it doesn't show. But whenever I click on it from my PC or the emulator, because the user here has a conversation with Nadine, that chat shows for both of them. And I can also chat Nadine here. It doesn't necessarily mean that the chat is going to come over to sam@gmail.com. So I can say hi Nad, this is James. I can send it and you could see it doesn't reflect. Even if I go back and click on it, it doesn't reflect. And also the unique message I sent to Sam does only reflect. So the only thing lacking on this tutorial is just that I didn't sort the message using the timestamps, which you can actually do if you just put more effort. That can also be your challenge, because it took me more than a week to figure out how to do this properly, and right now I have it done. So we are going to be going through this video to build this one step at a time. There is also a link on the description. If you want to purchase the full source code, you can buy it from the link on the description. And I'm also going to try to put much links that are going to be helpful for this tutorial. So if you've really come this far and you are willing to proceed, whether you're willing or not willing, please do make sure you hit that like button and also the subscribe button. And right now, let's get started. So these are the packages or dependencies that we're using. We have Axios for making a request, and we're using Flutter and Redux, Flutter Redux for state management, and then we're using shared preference for local storage. Then we are using Socket for a meeting. Then we have the time, the unique epoch timestamp, and then we have the random unique ID generator. So that's what we are using for our dependencies on our Flutter app. Then for our Nodejs application, I'm not going to go through setting up the server. So I assume that you already know it, but if you don't know it, I'm going to put a link on the right side of the screen that you can actually use to watch on creating a simple Nodejs server. So right here you could see we have our MongoDB connected, and we're actually using our MongoDB connection string over here. So you could see our Mongo URI coming from our config folder default.json file. So this is just my Mongo URI. So that's exactly what I grabbed here, and we're using that connection string to actually connect to our MongoDB, and then we just set up the server and everything is working perfectly. So that's it for our simple Node.js server. Then back to our PubSpec YAML file. So these are the packages or dependencies that we're using. One more thing I forgot to tell you is the HTTP dependency for also making a request, but I don't think we actually used it. But anyways, let's just get started. So make sure you have all these. I think when you click on the description here, you're gonna see a link to the boilerplate and you have access to all this. So guys, it's kind of long. I did the recording, so I may not easily be able to flow perfectly, but trust me, if you follow along, you're gonna understand everything. So right now, go over to this main.dat file and click on it. And the first thing first, let's just go through this file. So right here, you could see I'm passing a store, which we are going to be putting down here shortly. And then we are using our chat state, which is going to contain our initial state values, just like the way we have in Redux. I mean Redux for React Native or React JS application. Then we have our route here. So initial route is onboarding, and we're using the login route and also the onboarding route. So these are the two most important routes for our main.dat file. So I'm just going to quickly create a chat state, then we can come back to connect our store to our my app class. Then later on, we are going to run our application to make sure everything is working perfectly. So before you proceed once more, do make sure you hit that like button and also the subscribe button. And I'm quickly going to open my store, and I'm going to open the reducer file. So beneath here, you see the comment for the initial state values. I'm going to create a class called chat state. So this chat state is going to have initial state value of error message. So we are actually using a type of string. So if you're coming from JavaScript, it's just similar to TypeScript. Let me just comment this for authentication. Then we are going to have a boolean of is authenticated, and I'm going to set this to false, although that you can also remove it because we can still set it from our main.dat file. So why you see all this recommendation is because I'm actually using what is called tab 9. So if you click here, you could see I'm using tab 9. You can go over to your file settings, and over there you can click on plugins. So this is IntelliJ IDEA or IntelliJ IDE. Click on plugins and you can search for tab 9. So tab 9 kind of helps you memorize the way you type your code, so that it will show you some recommendation whenever you are typing that code and speed up your work. So we're gonna have also registration loading. So this was supposed to be fine now. So we also have something like log loading for registration loading or log loading. So these two can be used for spinners. So we also have a class of, let me just set this to dynamic for now. So make sure it's small letter, and let's just call this user. And we are gonna have a final list of, so I'm gonna set this dynamic as well. And we can call this all users. So that's for authentication state values. Then we are gonna have the one of chats. Oh, what is going on? Then we are gonna have a final string of active user. So whenever you click on a user to chat with that user, the active user kind of updates immediately, just in split seconds. Then we're gonna have a string also of active room. Just like the way we update the active user, we also update the active room. So the active room is actually a unique ID that is generated on each user click, so that anytime you want to chat with a user, that active room ID is what you're going to be using for the socket IO to chat with that user. Then we are going to use our constructor here. So I'm going to call this chat state constructor. So let me scroll a little bit down. So we have chat state, and I'm just using these curly braces because we are kind of making this optional. So inside here, we are gonna have this .user. So you see the recommendation coming out. Then we have this .error message as well. We have this .is authenticated. We have this reg loading. We have this log loading. So I'm going to quickly pull those things down. So the error goes away. Then one more thing I forgot to do is for chat messages, we also have to add an initial state value for chat messages, which is gonna be a final list. So inside that list, so each of those messages are going to have some details like the sender and also the receiver. So we are going to call this a map, which is going to have a string of key value pairs, but this is going to be dynamic because it can either be a boolean or a string, and then we can just give that messages. Then right here, we just have to add these .messages. So that's it for our initial state values. And right now, whenever we want to update any of these, it's very simple. We can just use something like create a function or a method inside this class, and we can just quickly do that. So for this one, I'm gonna call it chat state. It's gonna return a type of chat state, but we're gonna call it copy with. You can either give it whatever you want to give it. You don't have an issue with that. So I don't think this is wise. So yeah. So this is how we do it. So for here, these are the values that we're going to be passing. We can actually not pass that value that way. We can actually do something like error message and then pass it's authenticated, you know, all those values. But in order for us to make it optional, so that whenever we are updating a single value, we don't have to like refer to other initial state values. So we just use curly braces to make each of them optional. So whether it's provided or not, it's just optional. So this one is a type of bool. So we just have to restrict that to a type of boolean. So I just have to break this down to make it look nice. Then we also are gonna have a dynamic of user. So we also are gonna have a list of dynamic all users. Then we're also gonna have a string of active room. Then we have a string of active user. And lastly, just like the way we have for this message, so I'm just gonna grab this, come down here, paste this, and I can just get rid of this final, then, and also this closing tag there, then I can format it properly, and everything is looking nice. So we just have to return chat state, and we just now have to set the values. So we have error message is gonna be the initial state value that we are passing from our main.dat file or the new error message. So same thing, we can just quickly do it for other ones. And the next one is active user, which is active user or this .active user. So type 9 is kind of speeding things fast for me, which is very nice. So I suggest that you can also get that plugin. And lastly, we have the message with this .messages. So make sure you close this and all the errors should go away. So right here, you could see we are using dynamic for all users and also for the user. So I'm just going to create a model before we go over to our main.dat file. So come over here, you're gonna see the models file. So these models are going to like give us an idea of how our data for user and also user data is going to be. So whenever a user log in, we're going to receive something like a map with key value pairs. So let's just go ahead and put that down so that we can understand. So this is the user class that is going to accept a string of ID, also a string of name, and also a string of email. Then using the constructor, so usually good for us to make it make it optional. So we have this .id, this .name, and also this .email. And I want this to be required. So the ID is optional, but it's not required. But the name must be put down in case. So even if we don't have ID, we don't have to worry. So you just have to add require, and that should fix it, and we can format everything properly. So what's catching it? I think there's an error there, and that should solve it. And also one more thing is for our user data. So they kind of look alike. You can actually stick to user or also use this user data, but since that's how I started this tutorial, I just want to stick to that. So I just want to add the user data, and they are likely the same thing. We have the ID, the email, and also the name. And here, just change this to user data, and everything is gonna be fine. So these ones, I just have to get rid of required. So I just have to like do this because for my boilerplate, this is how it looks exactly. I didn't get time to fix this. So, but not like we have an error. If you want to stick to user, you can stick to user. If you want to also stick to user data, you can stick to user data. But at the end, the main focus of this tutorial is to make sure that you understand each and every one of these. So we can go ahead and save it and come back to our reducer. So for this, I just have to change this to user. So this user is coming from our models. So I'm just going to tick that, and then for this one is going to be user data. So I can just type down user data, and it's going to grab it from our models as well. So if you want to use user here, you still don't have a problem. But like I said, let's stick to what we already have so that we don't kind of experience any error. So right here, you can also change this to user, and also this one to user data. So all our errors are fixed. So, and we are done with our reducer. So I'm just going to ignore this. Then coming back to our main.dat file, we are going to create a store with the chat state. So beneath here, I'm going to create a store string that's going to take the new store. So the new store coming from our Redux, which is going to accept the reducer, the reducers, or a single reducer, the initial state values, and also the middleware. So for the middleware, we have to use an array. So this is like a Redux Tongue middleware. So if you're familiar with, very familiar with React.js Redux, so this exactly kind of mimic that same value. So we have the reducers, the initial state, and also the middleware. You can add many middleware you want to add here. So for the reducer, coming back to this reducer file, we are going to create two reducer, then we use a combined reducer to join that reducer before we start making use of it in our main.dat file. So we are going to have an auth reducer, which is going to return a state. So each reducer usually returns a state, just like the way it is also on React.js. So we have reset reducer. I kind of putting this in the wrong way, so I can just put reset reducer here. So we're gonna know why we are doing that, which is going to take our state and then the action. And here I can just return the state. Then for the authentication reducer, we have the chat state auth reducer, as well as taking the state and also the action. And we can return the initial state. So quickly, let's fix our combined reducers. So this is combined reducers, which is going to, let's just give this to reducers. Then we can use the combined reducers. So the combined reducers is going to accept the reducers that we have, and also we can make sure that each reducer is stick to our data type. Then we have the auth reducer and also the reset reducer. So the reset reducer is used to reset values, just like error messages and also our authentication values. So that's it for our reset reducers. Then for the auth reducer, it has to do with helping us update our initial state values, storing the values and updating everything. So that's it. And then the only thing remaining is for us to connect that, and then we can go ahead and create our actions. So I'm going to connect this one to reducers, and we can just quickly select the first one to import that. So I just want to make sure everything is imported correctly. Okay, that's it. Then for our initial state is going to be chat state. So the chat state, we are going to set the initial values of each of these state values in our reducer. So coming back here, and the first one is the error message. I'm going to set it to empty value. We also have all users. We can set it to null, or we can just set it to a new array, something like an empty array. And also we have the is authenticated. So I want to set that to false by default. Then we have the active user. So the active user, sorry for that, is an empty string. Then we also have the active room, which is an empty string. And then lastly, we have the messages as empty list as well. So that's it. We can just go ahead and format that, and everything is looking nice. So the only thing remaining is for us to create this onboarding screen and also this login screen. So right now I'm going to stick to one. I just have to comment this out, and let's stick to creating our onboarding screen. So if you come over to our screens folder, inside the auth, we already have that file created, and we're going to create a stateful class. So we have onboarding, which is going to extend stateful widgets. So right here, we have at override. I'm going to create one more class before we proceed. So I'm going to give this one onboarding state, which is going to extend state of onboarding. Then right here, we have to use the onboarding state, and we have to create the state. And then we can map that, so we can give it a new onboarding state. So why we actually using this, because we want to use a stateful widget that is going to be updating some values dynamically. So although that we are not updating anything in this onboarding class, so as we proceed, you are going to understand better. So this one, we are going to have an override. So this override is going to take the init state. So whenever our application starts, we want to make a request. So that's why we are using this init state. So I just want to go ahead and design this first before we do any other thing. And one more override is at override the widgets. So let's add the widget quickly. And we want to return a scaffold. So inside that scaffold, we have the body, and the body is going to take in a container. So this is a comma. So inside here, I want the width to make use of the full screen width. So we can use double dot infinity. Also the height, same thing. Then we have the decoration, which is the box decoration. So the box decoration we're using here, we want to set a background image. So that's why we're using that. So the box decoration is going to accept an image, and I want to use the decoration image widget. So here we can put our assets image, and then we can reference our images welcome.png. Then we have the fit. We want it to fit the box fit height. So for the child of the container, so the container is going to have a child, which is going to return a container of, so give this a comma there to avoid that error, and then it's going to have a child of column. I don't think this is actually necessary, so let's just get rid of this one since we just want a simple image background. So let's just go ahead and start our application. And if you notice here properly, notice this very well, you could see the error that was actually showing in our main.dat file has disappeared. So that's a very good sign that we're making a very good progress. So you can just click on code, and here you can format code, or you can click Ctrl-Alt-L. So if you're on MacBook, Command-Alt-L is going to format for you. So I just click on that and tap arrow, and it's going to format it automatically for me. So right now, let's just go ahead and start our application. So right now we have it started and everything is looking fine. So when you try to start the application, in case you kind of notice any error, please, you have to come back and add this local storage. I kind of realized that I skipped that. So just go ahead and add it back because you're going to be making use of that local storage. So back in our login states here, in our stateful widgets, I'm going to declare a variable called local storage. So this is going to be a storage, and it's going to access the local storage. And here, I just want to give this a local storage. So this is not location storage. Make sure you give it a local storage. And then lastly, you can put app there. So like I said initially, we are going to be creating our actions ASAP. I'm going to come over to auth actions. So we're going to be creating 3 types of action. We have the load user, we have the login user, and also we have the register user. Or let's just say action, and also action. I'm going to quickly create this one. So we're going to be using the future. So the help of the future, we kind of signify that we are going to be making an assign. We are going to be using an assign function, and we are going to be making some requests as well. So this one is called load user, and I think we shouldn't be getting this error. Yeah, because I didn't set things properly. So we also have login user. So I can just call it login, and then we have the last one, which is register. And back inside our onboarding screen, which is over here, we can just come into our init state. So we just have to use the super.init state over here. So right here we have the new future. So what I want to do next is whenever our application opens, we don't want to just quickly make a request, because sometimes we may have an error because of that. So we just want something like a 1 second delay. Then we are going to make a request to our Nodejs server. Then if the token stored on our local storage is actually correct, then the application is going to proceed and take us to our chat room or our chat screen. But in the case it's not correct, it's going to bring us to the login screen. Then the user can actually log in, or the user can register. So we usually use new future.delayed. So that's how you do it on Flutter. Then you can put the duration, which is going to take in some seconds or milliseconds, and comma here, and it's going to have a callback. So make sure you spell things correctly. So right here, we can use the store.dispatch. So the store coming from our reducer, sorry, coming from our main.dat file, because that's where we added that. Then we can call the function called load user. Then the function is going to accept some couple of things that we're going to pass to it. So coming back here in our auth action, we're going to use, we can do this like I usually say, but because we want to make it optional, so that even if we are not to provide that, we can still be able to make use of this action. We can use curly braces. It's going to accept the storage, and now we can give the storage. It's going to accept the store. You can give the store, and it's going to accept the context. So while we are passing the context over here, so let me just use the build context first. So why we are passing the context over here is because if I want to redirect, I have to use the current context of that class in order for me to be able to redirect. So I kind of shouldn't put that there. And then for the store, I want it to be using our char state value. So our store is to be restricted to that char state values. So inside here, we can now perform any other action we want to perform, but in our onboarding screen here, we can now pass those things that we want to pass. So we have the first one to be storage. So we can pass the storage. Then the second one is the store. We can pass the store from our main.dat. Then the context, which is going to be using the context of our current screen or current class. So this is load user, not load users. So let's just go ahead and format that, and we kind of close this. So we have the storage, the store, and also the context. So right now I can save, and when we go over to this load user, let me kind of print load user and quickly refresh our application. So I'm going to quickly refresh our application. We should be able to see that load user in our console over here whenever the application is refreshed. So you could see we have that load user to show you that our method is being used or our action is being used. So I kind of realized that we don't even need the storage. I can just get rid of that, and also we can get rid of it from here. So just follow along. Everything we are doing is perfect. Then inside our auth actions, we are going to be constructing our API request. So here I'm going to be using shared preferences. So shared preference here, we are going to use it to access our local storage to make sure we have a token. So we can use the get instance method. So I want to access the token using the prefs, sorry for that, prefs.getString API token. So in case we don't have any API token there, we can set this to null. So why you see this await giving us an error is because we've not yet added an assign function there. So that should get rid of that error. Then let's just go ahead and construct our URL, which is going to use the HTTP URI. Then we can pass our link here, link to API. So we wanna make sure that we send some things through the headers. So I'm gonna use the map here. So these are just like data types. You can just, if you want to speed things up, you can just use dynamic. Then you can use something like headers. And here you can pass the key value pairs of content type. We have it to be application/JSON. Then I want to pass the signal token. So whatever you want to call it, just go ahead and call it. Then you can pass the token. So that's to speed things up, but it's always advisable to make these things look more professional, so I prefer to use map, and the map is going to take a string, and this can also be a string. So to make sure that our data is restricted, then we can use the response over here, and then we are going to make a request, a GET request, using the URL. Then we can pass in our headers to be the headers we constructed. Then lastly, we're going to have access to the status code. So the status code is what we're going to be using to make the redirects. So if it is 200, we proceed, but if it is not 200, then we redirect to the login screen, or we can redirect to the registration screen. So the login screen is preferable because we're actually making a request just to load the user. So let's go ahead and print this to make sure that everything is working perfectly. So I just want to make a request, a simple request. And for this one, remove this from quotes and just leave it the way, because we are using this variable over here. And before we make that request, I just want to quickly refresh the application. Right here, you could see we have an error, and that's because the URL we are trying to hold, like the host is not specified a URL link, so I'm not actually pronouncing it perfectly, but I think you kind of understand me. So what I'm going to do now is to copy the IP address of my Wi-Fi, or my home Wi-Fi. So I'm just going to type ipconfig. So I just have to scroll a little bit up, and I can grab this and come over here. So I can paste this, and here we can use HTTP, and I want to set this to 5000 because we are using a port of 5000. So we are making a request to login/user, because that's where we are going to be setting up a route for our load user. So let's just go ahead and refresh and make sure everything is working perfectly, and I'm going to close this. So that shouldn't take our time. And so right here you could see we have a 404 status code because the URL doesn't exist. You could see we are making that request. So what we are going to do now is to make sure that whenever this is not 200, whenever this status code is not 200, it should redirect the user to login not login.php, I mean login screen. So what I can do here is to use status code is not equal to 200. So what I'm going to do is, if there is any API token stored in our local storage, we have to remove that. So in case it's expired, or in case it doesn't work, so we just have to remove that from our local storage using the shared preference. Then what we are going to do is to gradually redirect. So I just want to use future.delayed. So we can use duration. Then we can use seconds, 3 seconds, and then we have that callback. So I just want to use the navigator dot push. We just want to replace this current route. So we are using the context, so that's why we pass that context. Then here we're using the material page route. So that's how you can actually redirect. So right here we're using the material page route, and then the builder, we're gonna build the login screen. So the login screen. So right here with the login is kind of showing us an error because we don't actually have that login class. And let's go ahead and work on that immediately. And I'm going to create that class called login, and we are going to extend stateful widgets. So I think this is capital S. So we are going to create a stateful widget, and inside that stateful widget we are going to use another class called login state. So then for the build context of the stateful this is stateless widgets. So for the build context of this stateless widgets, we have to use override. So we have widgets, build context here, and right here I just want to return a container with a child. So this child, I'm going to set this to null for now and make sure I format this properly. So I'm going to create that class. So I'm going to call this one login main, which is going to be the stateless widget. So I kind of did it like this because we're going to be updating things dynamically, things in our let's say state, and also in our UI, that is the input. So we have the stateful widget at override. So here I have to just quickly create one more class for proceed. So I'm going to call this one login state, which is going to extend state of login main, which is the stateful widget, and then over here, and that is login state, which is going to use the create state, and then we can pass we can call that class login state. Then over here we just want to avoid that error because I don't like that, and I can just quickly use the widget build context, and right here I just want to return a material app. So close things properly. So we have home. We can use the safe area to avoid the status bar. Then we have a child of scaffold. Then we have the body. You can just pass a container here. So for now, I'm just going to put a child of text called login screen. So let's go ahead and format our code, and everything is looking nice, and let's save. So this is kind of we should use capital L there rather than using small l, so that is better. So right now let's go ahead and come over to our auth actions. And right here you could see the login class is actually loading perfectly. So we are going to use this context that we are passing here, and we're going to use that to load our login class or login route. So if you check in our main.dat, we pass that context. Sorry, in our onboarding screen, not in our main.dat. We pass the context, so that's exactly what we are using. So right now let's refresh, and everything should still work perfectly. So you could see here we made that second request, which is when we refreshed, and we are able to come over to the screen called login screen or login route. So like I said, this is my first time of using or doing things very well with Flutter. So there are a lot of things I'm still yet to know, which I'll be bringing up shortly once I have more understanding of it. So we are still going to touch some areas of animation and some more advanced things with Flutter. So we are over to this login screen because we don't have a user. So right now let's go ahead and work on this login screen. So here I'm going to clear this child, and let me just leave it for now. So what I want to do is to add a background image to this container. So right here we have width. So the width is going to use the double.infinity that we used before, like as well the height. So let me format this, and then here we're going to use a decoration because we want it to have a background image, and we're going to use the box decoration widget, which is going to use an image with the decoration image widget. And here we have the image, asset image, and we are using images/bgmain.png, and I want it to fit everywhere, so we can use fit box fit.cover. and that solves it, and we can go ahead and save that. So you've seen me use these images twice, so I think I did make a reference to that. If you come over to this popspec.yaml file, you could see I allowed us to use the images from our assets. I allowed us to use our assets from our images. So right here we have the images, and these are the images that we are making use of. So back in our login screen, you can just go ahead and close this and close this. So for the child, I'm going to get rid of these text widgets. So because whenever we tap on an input, we have to like avoid the keyboard covering our input. We are gonna use something called single child scroll view. So this single child scroll is gonna have a child of column. So as usual, column can have a lot of children, which is going to accept a list of children. So inside our children, we can now add some other things that we want to add. So let me just go ahead and format it and break it down. So the first one we're gonna have here is gonna be a container. So I just want to give this a margin. So this is just basically for a simple image that we're going to add at the top. So after this one, I'm going to refresh the application so that you can see the effect. So we're gonna have edge inserts.only. So we have top 100. Then we're gonna have a padding of edge inserts.only. So we have left of 52. Same thing with the right one. Then we have a bottom of 10. Then we have a width of 200, and we have a decoration of box decoration. It's an image of decoration image widgets of image assets image. Then we can specify the image you want to use, which is login.png, and as well the box. So we have box size or box feet.cover. So let me not rush things. Let me just gradually do things. So we have box feet height. So that's it. Then we're gonna have a child. So this child is going to be a size box. So we have a size box. So sorry for that, and that should be after our decoration. Then we can pass the child, which is going to take a sideboard because we want to limit where the image should be. We want to constrain that, so we use size box, which is going to have a height of 100.0 and also a child of null. So let's save that and refresh, and quickly refresh our application. So we still have this dark screen. That's because I totally forgot that we have to come over here and change this to login main. So make sure you come over here and put that login main function or class over there, and that should definitely be able to solve that. So quickly, let's refresh and just see what goes on here. So we have 3 requests. So our application is going to request and show us the welcome screen or the onboarding screen, and it's going to make that request, making it 4, yeah. And right now you could see we have that login screen. So here we have that images that we are actually using. So let's come back here, and our image is not showing here, our login image. That's because we didn't spell things correctly. So beneath this, we are gonna have our error message or error messages. So this is kind of trying to confuse me. So our error message is not going to be just an ordinary text, because we are going to be getting it from our reducer state values. So we're going to use something called store connector. So with the help of store connector, we can actually have access to anything we want to have access to from our Redux. So I'm going to get rid of everything inside the store connector and do it our own way. So we want to have access to our chat state, and we want to return a string for this particular store connector. So here we have the converter, which is going to take our store. and we want to have access to store.state.error message. So if you don't specify the TypeScript, I don't know what it's called on Flutter, so permit me for that. If you don't specify the type, you wouldn't get this properly. So you could see that when I just put a dot over there, I can have access to a lot of things in our chat state. Then on will change performs nothing, so we don't need that, but let me just leave it. So let me just stick to our boilerplate. Then we have the builder. So the builder is going to render our error message and also our component, or let's say our widget. So I want to use this function. So inside this function, we're going to return a container and then add some couple of styles. So the first one is padding. So I want to use edge insert, or we can also use this something like edge insert dot only top 10. Not really far from the top one or the top image. Then we have the child to be a text. So here we can now access our error message, and then we can add a style. So we have a text style, which is going to have a color of color. So I want to use a color code of FF4500. So that solves it, and we can refresh. So I'm just going to save this, and finally, let's go ahead and refresh our application. We should be able to see that little login image at the top over here. So let's allow this to refresh. So we have the welcome screen, which is going to make that request, and after some time, it brings us to the login screen because the API token didn't work out or did not work out. So right here, you could see we are gradually making progress. And you can't see an error message because we don't actually do have an error message right now. So the next one is going to be the container that is going to house, or that is going to contain our inputs. So below here, I'm going to say inputs container. So let's just bring down a container widget, and we're gonna have a margin with cons edge and sets of only. We're gonna have a top of 2.0. So if you notice here, I've been using like normal values. You can add .0. So I see a lot of people do this for Flutter, so you can still use it, but I don't know why, because I've not actually checked the reason for that. Maybe later on in a video or later videos, I can tell you more about that. So we have the padding, which is going to take a edge insert of only left. That's for padding. We have rights of 30. Then we have a child of Quillium. So I'm not pronouncing things perfectly, so pardon me for that. And we're gonna have children with list. So inside here, we have padding of padding agent set dot only top 20.0. So why I'm using padding here is because it kind of helps us to reduce repeating some code. So we just have to use that padding widget, then we can put whatever we want to put inside the child of that padding. So inside here I'm gonna have a child, which is going to be a text field. So this text field is going to have a lot of things, and that's going to help us to, that's going to make us to create state values. So in a React.js application or a React application or even a Vue application, we have something like a state value. Then in that state value, whenever an input is being updated, we automatically update that using something like onChange. So for Flutter, text field is called onChanged. And then we want the first one to be email. So I'm just going to grab that email. Then I'm going to set state. So the state we are going to set is to update our email variable or email state value, which is an email. So we've not yet defined that. So let me just quickly go ahead and define that state value. So above here, just a little bit above here, we're gonna have string email, and we just want this to be an empty string, and also we're gonna have a string of password because it has to do with login. So we log in with email and password. So let me just put down password there. So let's just say state values. So going back to this container, we have that email. So this email here, okay, sorry guys, we should use something like underscore here because it kind of makes it look unique, so that we don't mix it with this one. So that error goes out. So we already have that, and beneath this, we are gonna have a decoration. So we're gonna have an input decoration. So we have the input decoration, and we just want to style the border, which is going to use the outline. It's called outline input border widget. And then we have the border side, which is going to use the border side. I'm going to add a color to it, which is going to take the color widget, and then we can add 0xFF. So here we have C4, C4, and C4. And that should be it. Then we have the width. We want to give the border size of width too. So let's format our codes. And that's looking nice. So the next thing we have to do is to add a hint. So just at the back of, oh, sorry guys for that. Oh, it's kind of clear things for me with my Vim. I didn't even notice that. Okay, sorry guys for that. So I didn't notice that. So I just want to add a hint text before we format. So that's, let's say email@email.com. And lastly, we can add a hint style. Not lastly, we just want to add a hint style. So the hint style is going to have a font size of 15.0. And then we can add a text capitalization to using the text capitalization widget. Then we can use the none because we just want it to be either uppercase or lowercase. So we can format now, and we don't have any error. So when we come back in our console and just quickly run our application. So let me just go ahead and run this. So you could see we have that little input text or input decoration with this border width of 2, and then with the hint style and also the hint text. So what I'm going to do is to copy exactly this. So from this padding to the closing padding here, I'm just going to copy that. So I just suggest that you go ahead and do as well. I'm going to put a comma here and paste it down. So we are going to edit from the top. So the first thing we have to do is to change this one to password, and change all these to password. Also this one, change it to password. Then we can change these hints to password. So make sure it's I think camel, okay, sorry, capitalized. Then we also have text decoration of no, and that should be it. So one more thing remaining is beneath this padding, we have to put a comma, and then we have to add a container. So this container is going to contain our button and also a little text, something like click here to register. So let's say something like double button. So inside this container, I want a margin, which is going to use the edge index.all. So when I use all, it kind of uses the top, right, bottom, and also the left. Then the width, I want the width to use, so sorry for that because my voice was kind of behaving somehow. I need to take some water. So I want the width to be using only 60% of the screen width. So we can use media query of this current context. So here we can use size.width. So make sure you spell things correctly. Then we can just take 60% of that width with 0.60. And then for the child, we don't want to use anything else but the text button. So make sure you go ahead and use the text button, not just the text. So inside here, we're going to have a style with a text button style. So we call it style from. So the style from is going to accept some key value pairs of primary, background, and also padding. So let's just go ahead and add that. Then we have the background color. So the background color is going to be a color of 0xFF. We have 474EF4. So that should be it. So that's like a little bluish color. Then we have a padding, which is going to take the edge insert dots. So we want from left, top, right, and bottom. So you can still use like only, something like only, then you can specify. But this kind of also make it very fast. So we have 0, 15.0, then we have 0.0 as well, and lastly 15.0. So let's go ahead and format our code, and our code is looking nice. So beneath this here, we're gonna add, just at this text button, beneath this padding, we're gonna add the call to action method. It's called onPressed. So we have the onPressed. So the onPressed is a callback which is going to perform something like a dispatch action. So before we come back there, let's go ahead and add a child in order to display a text inside there. So I'm just going to add a login here, and then I'm going to add a style of text style, which is going to accept a color of colors dot white. So let me kind of format this. I want things to break up. Then we have a font size of 15.0 and also a font weight of, so we have font weight dot bold. So that solves it, and I can just go ahead and refresh this and save. So let's go ahead and refresh our application faster. So right now you could see that nice login button. So when we click on this, you could see it actually shows us that it's being clicked, but nothing is happening because we are not using the call to action method called onPressed. We just added a callback there. So we are going to add something like click here to register before we come over to this login and then use our store dispatcher. So what I have to do is to copy this. So like I said, it's going to be 2. I think, let me kind of locate where it is ended. So over here, so we have it here. Go ahead and copy that and put a comma and paste that. So the only thing I have to change here is for this one, we are using 0xFF. I want this to be 6. So let me just use FF 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's white color for you. So this one is the bluish color. And then for this one, since it's a white background, I want to use a blue text. Then I can change this to click here to register. So save that again and quickly refresh our application before we go over to our action, and we're going to be able to click on this login, and then we can perform some some requests to our server. So right now it's going to refresh and make a request, and because that request is invalid, it's going to bring us over to the login screen. So you could see we have click here to login, and both of these are just buttons, although that they are not doing anything now, and we can just go ahead and fix something. So before we fix anything, I just want us to close every other file opened and come over to our project folder, go over to the lib folder, and inside our screens, you're gonna see the auth folder, and then you're gonna see the register folder. So before we are gonna be able to log in, we have to make sure we have a registered user. So that's why we want to first of all work on this registration. Then we can come over here and use the call to actions either for login or for registration. So back in our registration file, let's go ahead and do that. So what I'm gonna do is, instead of us to go ahead to waste time to type this, I'm gonna come over to this login file. I'm going to scroll up and I'm going to copy everything that you see here to the bottom. So just go ahead and do the same thing with me. So let's just quickly copy that and come over to register, and we can paste that. So I'm going to change this one from login. I'm going to change it to register. So sorry for that, guys. So sorry, I have my caps lock on. So we have register main. Sorry, this is not for register main, so that's the one for the bottom there. So we can just change this to register, and then I can change this to register main. Then right here, you can now bring in the register main. So make sure everything is correct. So you could see the register main over here. So what I'm gonna do now is to also rename this. So I'm gonna rename this to register state. And then we already have the register main. So we have the register state as well as the register state. So that solves that error and it goes away. So for this file over here, the login file, let me just quickly check in our assets folder, images. I think in images folder, yeah. So I'm gonna change this to register. That solves it. So let's quickly scroll up here. You are gonna see right here we have the email, the password, and one more thing is to add the string of confirm password, because we're gonna need that. It's very necessary. Then let's scroll a little bit down. Then for one of these padding that contains the text field, we are gonna add one more text field, which is going to accept, which is going to confirm password. So let me just go ahead and copy this one. So beneath here, I'm gonna paste that. And then I'm gonna change, I think this is what we just pasted. So for this one, I'm gonna change everything that is very necessary. So we already have the, this is, let's say, password. Okay, I'm just gonna change this to C password. So one more thing we can do is to make sure we avoid unnecessary errors. So what I'm gonna do here is we can use if password dot length is greater than 0. We just want to set this so that we don't have an error. So this is password. So that solves it, and we can go ahead and save that. Then for this one as well, I think have we added it? For the unchanged of this one added. So for this password, I'm going to use also if password dot length is greater than 0. Then I have to cover that as well. And I think lastly, we also have to use it on this one. So we just did this in the case that even if the user doesn't type anything and hit on submit, these values are still going to be empty or null, so that it doesn't throw an error, or it doesn't store an empty value into our MongoDB class or MongoDB models. So that's what we just did. So I'm going to save that and check back in our application. And right here, you could see when we click on this register, nothing happens, and that is coming from our login screen. what I'm going to do is to go over to this login.dat. I'm going to, for this one, this is click to register. Then for the login, this is click to login. So let's just save that and come over here. So I wanted that whenever I press or click on this button over here, I want to be able to redirect to the login route or the login class. And to simply do that is to come inside these curly braces and let's open it up. I'm going to use something called navigator.push. Sorry. So it's called push replacement, and then which is going to take the context, and then we're going to use material page routes. Sorry, it's just a function, not anything like dots. Then we are going to reference the builder. We want to build a new screen, which is the register model. So we already have the register model created. So when I press Ctrl and click on this, we should come over to the register class. And quickly, let's just go ahead and refresh. So we are kind of getting a little error there. And that's probably because I'm using inverted commas where I shouldn't use it. So let's just allow this for a quick refresh, and then we are going to click here to register to see what happens next. So that is it, and it's going to make a request and gives us a 404 error, brings us into this login screen. And when we click on this, you see immediately we come over to this register route. So back here, I'm going to change this to confirm password. So we already have password at the top, so we can change this to confirm password. And what else? We have to change this to register because we already have the login. And just like the way we did for the click here to login, click here to register, we just have to come over here to the login. So I'm just gonna copy this down immediately. So it started here. So we have like 3. Then I'm gonna paste this. We are getting, okay, it's not an error, sorry for that. So I just formatted that, then I can change this to the login route. So quickly, let me just reboot our application. Click here to register. And when we click on register, nothing happens. Of course, we don't have anything in the call to action. But when I click on login, we come back to this login screen. So we are done with the registration and the login screen. So the next thing remaining right now is for us to make use of this registration button and also the inputs over here, because right now we don't have any user registered in our MongoDB Compass. So if you have come this far, please do make sure you hit that like button and also the subscribe button. So in the next part, we are going to go over to creating our actions and then making use of the call to action of this register button. So see you on that next part. So these are the types of actions that we're going to be defining shortly. And the next thing I have to do is to grab the response data. So we have the user, and we're going to construct it from our user that is returned from the body user, which is not actually null. So the first one is the name. And right here, we have the body user, and then we have the name. Then we have the email, body user, email, and lastly we have for the ID, body user, and because it's coming from MongoDB, we have the ID of, I think, okay, we already constructed the ID ourselves, because if you check here, we have the ID, so we are not using the underscore ID. I kind of thought that we are using that. So that's it. And I'm going to create our action. But before that, one more thing is to make sure that we grab our token. So the token is going to be a string from the body user. And then we have the token. Sorry, from the body token, not user, because we passed it directly. So if you check here, you could see we have that token over there. And we have to set token for local storage. So we can use the await prefs. Okay, we've not yet added that, so sorry for that, guys. So what we're gonna do now is to make sure that we have access to our local storage that is at the top here using the shared preferences. So you can use the await shared preferences dot get instance, and then at the bottom here we can now use that. So we can use the prefs dot set string the key values. So I want to use await here, and so the value is the token, while the key is the API token. So whatever you want to name it, you can go ahead and name it, and we can store that. So the next one was to dispatch. We're going to dispatch to our reducer, which is this user, and then lastly we can redirect because everything went redirect to chats because everything would be perfect. So what we're going to do now is to create our types and also some of our actions before we go ahead and come over here to make some redirects. I'm going to come over to this types file. So right here you could see we are using types.clear error. So to do that is very simple. So we could let's say types of actions. So I can use an enum here called types. So we have the clear error, which is going to clear our error. We also have the clear user, clear log, clear registration. So this kind of gives you an idea of whether the this kind of gives you an idea that we can clear the user that we are going to be getting from this place particularly. We can clear it from our reducer state or store. Then we can also clear the true values and also like the Boolean values, either true or false. We can use these two to reset it, and we use this one to clear an error. So for this one, I don't actually remember what I used it for, but maybe as we progress I can remember and then tell you. So one more thing I have to do is to create an action that is going to be updating our user into our store. So I can say update user action. So this update user action is going to be a class which is going to take in update user action, and is going to have access to that our user. So it's going to be a type of that our user. So this user is coming from our models. Yeah. So go ahead and import that and everything should work perfectly. And we can use a constructor over here. So we have this dot underscore user. So one more thing is to create a getter. So with the help of getter, we can be able to access that user that we're going to be passing inside this class inside our reducer. So I know that this is kind of confusing, but don't worry, as we progress, you're going to understand everything. So that's it for Flutter. So it kind of took me some couple of times to figure out how to do this, which is very nice. But I still like the way, the conventional way of doing this with Flutter. Like, it's still very cool for me. I like it very much for me. So coming back here, we have to dispatch and store this user in our reducer. I'm going to open my reducer file. And that's it over here. So inside this auth reducer, we are going to be handling some couple of actions. So one of them now is update user action. So down here, dispatch to store user in state store. So we can use store.dispatch new update user action. So guess what is going to be accepting? If we put something like a string here, it's not going to work. It's going to show us error. So sorry for that. So it must accept the user that we've constructed here. So if it's not that user type, if it's not this data type, it's not going to accept any other thing. So that's how we can dispatch to this reducer over here. Then we're gonna grab those values from our reducer. So whenever we dispatch, we want a little delay before we redirect. So let me just go ahead and put this down before we go ahead and create that. So we have the duration, which is going to take in the seconds. So we want, whenever everything is done, just 3 seconds after that, we want to redirect the user using the navigator.push replacement. Yeah, which is going to take in the context, the material page route, and inside the builder we can have access to our context, and then to wrap this, we can now go over to what is called the user list. So we've not yet created our class, so we're gonna get an error, and I'm not gonna create that class right now, but let me just kind of print about to redirect and close that. Then coming back here, everything is done. So let me kind of format our code. So guys, everything we did here is very explanatory. Like if you're following along, it shouldn't be hard for you. And I'm gonna refresh our application. So I just want us to fix the one for the error message, or for the status code that is not 200, not error message. So we can decode that. Now let me just grab that. I don't want to waste time on that. So we could say, sorry guys. So we can say if there is body or message, if there's an error message, we just want to remove that any already existing API token stored in our local storage. So the error message can be coming for the reason of expired token, or for any error message. In fact, we just want to clear that, so that whenever the user registers successfully, the user gets a unique and new API token. Then lastly, we have to dispatch this error message. So this error message is going to be showing right here. So if you can recall, we use the store connector to have access to our error message. So we want to dispatch an error message. So what I'm going to do now is to first of all create that type, create the action inside our types. So at the top here, we can say update error message, which is going to take in the class of update error action. So it's just a string of error with the constructor that we're gonna pass that value to, which is this dot error. And then for the getter, just error, and we can map it to this dot error. And let's go ahead and save that and format the code. And coming back inside our auth actions, I want to dispatch that. So we can use store.dispatch new update error action. So if we use something like a number here, it's going to show us an error. So if we use any string here, it's going to update that string because it's just a string, but we want to stick to our error message, which is a string. So this kind of dynamic, that's why we don't have data type mapped to it. So we can either, dynamic means it can either be a boolean or string or an integer, whatever it is. Dynamic doesn't affect it. So let's go ahead and save it and refresh our application. So we are done with the registration. So the next thing we have to see is that whenever we register a user, we should be able to see at least about to redirect, except that user do exist. And right here, I'm going to refresh. So guys, I was thinking like, what if, okay, since we are gonna see the error message, so there is no need to print it out because we should be able to catch an error message in our screen over here. So I'm gonna click on this. At least let's go for the error message because we have that user already existing. So I'm gonna click register, check back here. We are getting an error, but the error is not showing here. Okay, the error is not supposed to show because we've not yet updated it from our reducer. So let's go ahead and update it from our reducer. So in Redux, we use something like a switch statement that is going to be targeting each of our actions. So the way we can use that is very simple. We can just use it directly for the types of enums here, but since this is just classes, we can't use it directly that way. So the way we can do that is very simple. We can say if action is update error action, we can return state dot. If you could recall, we use copy with. So copy with here accepts some couple of optional values. So we just have to use error message, which is action. So inside this action, we should have our getter, which is error. So you could see that error over there, and that's coming from our getter over here. So this kind of makes Flutter cool. Like, I really love this part. That's where it was most complicated for me, because for me to figure this out was like I felt I can't explain it. So but right now everything is working perfectly on my side, and I'm sure if you're following along, you should really understand where we are. So please do make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to click on that. And our application is about to restart. I'm going to click on register, and I just want us to see at least an error. So we have Samuel, and also we have Samuel, and still not showing. We should be able to see an error. So right here we are getting an error. String is not a subtype of bool. Then that means that we are passing a wrong thing to our error message. So let's kind of print action.error. So I kind of checked things out. I figured that the problem was I was using this as a type of bool. So I use it directly. So that was why it was regarded as a Boolean value. So if you check properly here, you can see string is not a subtype of bool. So to fix that, we have to make sure that this is not an empty string. Simple. So let's go ahead and refresh. And coming back to our reducer, I just want us to, so let's just go ahead and refresh. Hopefully we should be able to see an error message this time around because everything is fixed. So let me grab this here and bring this over here. Yeah, that's good. And coming back in our application, we can click on register, and let's go ahead and type quickly. So we have Samuel, and can hit on register. So right now you could see we have that user exist. That's to show us that this user do exist. So let's say I use james@gmail.com with the same password and register, and inside our console we should see able to redirect, so about to redirect. So that's to show us that everything is working perfectly. What I'm going to do now is to since we can't be able to redirect because we've not yet added our user list class, and that's coming from the home folder, we've not yet added anything here. We are going to first of all make sure that we are able to log in. Then when we are done with the login, then we can be able to work on the user list or the chat list. I call it chat list most times because that's where we're going to see the users that we're going to be chatting. So let me go ahead and work on the login, then we can proceed. And inside here, I'm going to dispatch an action whenever we click on that login button using the dispatch. And I'm going to use the login method or the login function coming from our auth actions, and there are some couple of things that we are going to be passing to this login. So I'm just going to go over to that login, and then we can just go ahead and put the things that we want here. So for it to be optional, don't forget to put curly braces, and then we have the store, which is going to have a type of chat state. We also have the storage. Okay, we don't necessarily need the storage because we are using shared preference. So instead of me to use string email, I just want to make sure that these are required, which is preferable than using just strings. So we also required a required password, and we are gonna bring down the context. So don't forget to bring it down. And then, okay, we don't need the storage, just like I said. So let's just save that and come over here. So right here, all I just simply need to do is to pass those things that we actually need. So we have the store, which is going to take in the store, the email, and the email is the underscore email, as well as the password, which is underscore password. So I kind of have to go through these. I don't want this to be empty, so I have to make sure that whenever we are typing, we have the password length greater than 0. So we can just go ahead and do that. So that's it. And also for the email, if email.length is greater than 0, so I'll just go ahead and format that, and coming down here, you can save. So let's click here and come back to our login. So I just want to make sure everything is working fine. You can just go ahead and print. Don't forget to put an async here. That's async. We're gonna print the email, and let's save and quickly refresh. So right here you could see when I click on register, let me just kind of restart the application. That would be the best. Then after the refresh, I'm going to click here to register. So when I click on here, you see we don't only get an error for the email or the user that is already existing, we get also an error for every other thing that we did set up. So this error is coming from please enter all fields, coming from this, because any single one of them that is empty is going to definitely throw that error to us, and then we can display that through our error message state value. So I'm going to come back here, and we can go over to click here to login, and for the login I'm going to type down sam@gmail.com. Then for the password, so when we click here in our console, we should be able to see that email. That's to show us everything is working perfectly. So just like we constructed for the registration, I'm gonna grab some things here. So without wasting time, I'm gonna paste that. And also for this one, I'm going to grab it. I'm gonna paste that. I don't want anything that will delay us. So we don't necessarily need confirm password, and we can get rid of confirm password. So, and also for the name, we have to get rid of it because we are trying to log in, and I can format that, and everything looks very nice. So also I have to grab the shared preference, because whenever we log in, we have to get a new token. Let's say for local storage. So it's usually recommended that you kind of comment your application, because it kind of simplify anything for you in case maybe you want to do an upgrade later in the future or whatever you want to do. So we are gonna copy from, okay, let's say I want to copy from here. I don't want us to repeat this frequently, so that's why I'm doing that. We can get rid of that particular shared preference. So whenever a user logs in, whenever we have an error message, of course, we should dispatch that error message. That is when we have an error. So when we don't have an error, that is if the status code is equals to 200, which is going to return a boolean value of true. If we don't have an error, we're going to perform some couple of actions. So I'm going to grab this as well, and then you can say if the body user is not equals to null, just like we did for the registration, we can now do some other things. And the first one is to clear any error. So let's say I want to clear store, I want to use the dispatch, and we are gonna dispatch types.clear error. So I don't think I've fixed that. I am going to open this and open our reducer. So in our reducer, we don't yet have something, we've not yet set out the condition which is going to be clearing any error that we have in our reducer state values. So we're gonna quickly do that when we are done with this. So let me just go ahead and fix this. So we also have to grab the response data, and we have to construct the user. So this user is going to kind of replace already existing user data. So just like we did for the registration, we have the body. So this is the name. We have the email. So that's why I love tab 9. You could see tab 9 is kind of then the ID. So I don't even need to repeat myself more frequently. It's kind of helping me. And I also have to dispatch that user. So we can use the update user action. Then we can pass that user, and that solves it. So right here, at this point, I want us to be able to see how this type.clear error works. So what I'm going to do is to quickly refresh our application, and if the user happens to be existing in our MongoDB Compass database, then whenever we click on login, that user is, this error is going to be cleared. So I'm just going to grab an error from our register screen, then come back to the login screen and log in with a user that is already existing to clear that error. So right here, you could see we don't have any error. And I'm going to hit register. You could see we have an error now. I'm going to log in with a user that is already existing. So when I hit this login, you could see nothing is happening because we are not yet doing anything from our reducer. So let's quickly go over here and clear that. And this is where it kind of gets familiar or similar with how React Redux works. I'm going to be using a switch action over here. So we have case types.clear error. So for this one, I want to return state.copyWith. So I want to update the error message. So just follow me, and I want to set it to empty string. So that solves it. Then one more thing is for the case, case of types dot is authenticated. So what I want to return is state.copyWith as well. I want to make sure that the is authenticated is set true. So this is where it kind of resets our values. So it's going to reset this authenticated from false to true. So if you could recall from our main.date file, we have is authenticated set to false. So whenever the user login, we have to reset that value. So that's why we have to set it from false to true over here. So that's where Flutter does kind of simplify things for users. So right now, coming back, I'm going to close this. We are done with that. Also close this one. I'm coming back here. I'm going to save, and we are going to refresh. So that's because I just want us to see what happens when we use types.clear error. So I'm going to click on register to get that error message. Then I'm going to log in. Then we have Samuel. And then when we log in here, Definitely we should be getting that because we dispatched a clear error. That means that we are not able to log in successfully if we didn't, if that didn't go through. So you could see here we have 400. So I'm going to open my MongoDB Compass, and we have sam@gmail.com. So I think the problem is because we are lacking something from our Nodejs server. So coming back here, I can remember clearly that we've not yet set this up. So I'm going to set this immediately. So we have to use the login, and we have to require route/login. So coming to this login, we've not even done anything here. So that's where the error was coming from. And quickly, let's just go ahead and do that. So we are going to be sending the email and also the password from the body. We can grab that. Then we have login simple validation. So we can say if there is no email or no password, we just want to return response status code of 400 with a JSON message of enter all fields. Then quickly, what we are going to do next is to check, let's say, check if the user exists. And let's just put that comment, validate if the user exists. So what I'm going to do here is to use the user schema. I think we have the user schema imported at the top. .find one. So we're going to be finding with the email, and after that we have to return a user. So in a case there is no user return or is a null, then we have to use the status code again and send a 400 status code with a JSON message of user does not exist. So let's format that. This has to be inside quotes. So formatting that. Then in case the user does exist, we just have to use the JWT sign, just like we did for the registration. We sign with the user.id for that particular unique user, and we get our secret, which we are going to be using for signing, which kind of makes it unique for our application only. Then we have to use expires. Let's not use config here. So I want it to expire in 1 hour. Then we are going to have error, and also we have the token. So let's scroll a little bit up. So right here, normally if we have an error, we just have to throw that error. But I don't think we should have an error, because if we have any user, we can proceed. But if we don't have any user, then we are gonna throw this error. So this error, whether we throw it or not, we're just setting that it's not actually that necessary. But to make things very nice and to be on a safer side, you just have to add it. Then lastly, we have to use the return a status code of 200 if the user does exist, and then we return the token. We return the user, which is going to have an ID, the name of the user, which is the user.name from our database, and then lastly the email, which is the user.email. So that solves it for that. And okay, we already have the load user. So let me just kind of put a console.log load user here. So although that previously it usually shows us a 404 error that's hit over here, but right now it's going to hit this route and it's going to console.log load user. So I'm going to quickly refresh the application because we have a terminated connection, and I'm going to open our application. So let's just allow that to finish. So for some reason, I don't know why we are not able to make use of this user get route, although we are going to come back to that. So I just have to comment it out so that we can make a progress. So right now we've set up that, and quickly coming back here, I think that should be in the login. Our target was to clear any error message that's going to be stored from this login for us to make sure that everything is working perfectly. So we wanted to use this type.clear error to clear that error. So I'm going to quickly come over here once more. I think when I click on this, anyhow we click on it, we should definitely get an error. So I'm going to, okay, let's kind of check in our console. One more thing, guys, is I kind of forgot that this was supposed to be login. So go ahead and change that and quickly refresh again. So let me click on login, and right here you could see we got an error from our login route showing us that everything is working. So you could see enter all fields, and I'm going to enter sam@gmail.com. So our target was to clear that error from our types error, and I'm going to hit this, and it's okay. Okay, guys, so right here you could see we have an error. That's exactly why it couldn't go through. So our error is coming from expires. Let's kind of figure it out quickly. So I use expires over here. I should use expires in. So I just want to make sure it's working perfectly. Expires in 3600. So this is like 1 hour. And I don't think we do have any other error. And let's go ahead to try that again. So for now, I'm going to click on login. Nothing showed up there. Why? So we have register, and then we have the login. So you could see when I clicked on login, we got that error. So I'm going to log in again, and we want to make sure that error goes out. And so right here you could see immediately I logged in, the error goes away. So back here, I'm going to quickly finish up. So we have to grab and set token to local storage. So the way we can do that is to use the token. So we have to grab it from the token from the body, and we can just set that using the prefs dot set string. So we have the key as API token, and then lastly we can set the new token. So one more thing is we now have to redirect the user to our chats list, and this is also the same thing that we did for the registration. And lastly, we can format our codes. So everything is working perfectly. So if I try to log in now, you could see I'm able to log in, but I'm not able to proceed. And you could see a lot of 200 status code in our console. I'm not able to proceed because we've not yet set up our user list. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. I'm going to go over to the project folder and come over to the home. You're gonna see the user list component. So let's kind of fix this quickly. I'm going to quickly create a class called user list. Sorry, that's users list, and which is going to extend the stateless widgets. So this one, the class of signal list, which is going to extend the stateful widgets. And lastly, we have the class of signal state, which is going to extend the state, the signal list. So these are the three classes. So the first one here has to use the override. So I'm kind of not doing things in a normal way it should be done, but anyhow, this is working perfectly. So I suggest that you take your time and learn about stateless and stateful widgets. So this is just a tutorial. It's not going to be perfect exactly as you want it, but it's meant to educate you and to push you to learn more. So we have to use the build, which is going to accept the build context, and then we can return a container. And inside our container, we have a child of signal list. So that's it. Then inside our signal list, we have, which is the stateful widgets. We have to use the override and use our signal state. So we have the, sorry for that, signal state, which is going to, so sorry for that, this is signal state. And that's it. And lastly, inside our signal states, we can now use the build as well. So I'm just going to quickly do that. So we have to use build, and or we just want to use a widget, and then we can return a material app. Then inside this material app, we are gonna have a child or a safe area, and inside that kind of something is wrong here. So we have, let me kind of make sure everything is working perfectly. We have child of safe area. So let me kind of format. Okay, isn't defined. I think it's because I'm using material app. Okay, that solves it. Then we have the child of the safe area to be scaffold, and inside that scaffold we're gonna have the app bar. So for now, let me just leave the app bar and just put something in the body. So let me just kind of put the app bar for now, but I'm gonna comment it out. Then we have the body, and the body is just a, let's say, the users list. So let's format that and save, and quickly refresh our application. So hopefully, oh guys, so sorry, I kind of forgot that we have to uncomment this. I'm going to uncomment this one, and also, so this is user list, and we're using users list. So I just want to stick to what we have. So if you want to change that, you can still go ahead and change it, but I just want to stick to what I started with. And then for this one as well, I'm going to uncomment that and format the code. So you could see everything is working fine. My PC kind of trying to be draggy, so we have to just gradually follow it up. So right now we are done with that. What I'm going to do next is come over to our auth. Okay, we already have done everything. I'm just going to quickly refresh and open our application, and I'm going to try to log in. So we have sam@gmail.com, then we have Samuel, and hit enter. And when we clicked on that, we are supposed to log in, but I don't know why we got that error. So it says something was called a null. So let me kind of figure it out. So I think it has to do with something that we didn't pass through. So we have the store, the context, and we have the email and password. So I am not passing the, okay guys, the problem is from this login. So from this login, come over here, we have the store, and we also have to pass the context. So hopefully that should solve it, because the context is what we are using to manage our navigation or render a new screen. So one more time is to refresh and open the application. So I'm going to log in again, and this time around I'm not expecting any error. So let's hit that login, and immediately we are over to the user list. So we are done with everything concerning our authentication, login, and also for registration, except for the load user, which we are gonna fix. That's just a minor case. Welcome back, guys. But before you continue, please do make sure you hit that like button and also the subscribe button. And right now we are in working on our user list screen because we've been able to complete everything that has to do with the authentication. So what we're gonna do next is to come to this signal state, and what I'm gonna do here is to create a function for socket connection. So this function is going to return void. Then we are gonna call it a socket server, and we're gonna use a try catch. So inside this try block, so this is curly braces. Inside this try block, there are a lot of things we are gonna put down there, and we're gonna have the catch, which is going to catch any exception. But I just want to print any exception that we catch, and we just want it to print as a string. So this is supposed to be E, not just ER. So inside our try catch, I want to quickly configure socket transports. So we are gonna define a variable at the top. So at the top here, we have to use the socket, and then inside here, so what we're gonna do is trying to think. Okay, we're gonna give this socket connection something, and we're gonna use IO. So I want to give this the URL that we're gonna be interacting with, and then some kind of map settings. So inside this, we're gonna have transports. So for the transports, we know is a WebSocket. Then we have for auto connect, we just want it to be false. Then we can connect to web socket, and we have to use socket.connect. This is connect. Then we have connect over here, and then we have handle socket events. So whenever we are connected, we want to make sure that we can see that in our console. So we could say on connect, print connect, and we have to print that socket.id. So that's it for the socket connection. So this kind of similar to the way it looks on JavaScript. You just have to pass the connection string URL, then you pass the socket settings, which is very simple, and then you connect, and that's it. So right now we are not making use of it. So the way we can make use of it is to use the init state of our class. I think it's called it at init state. So this kind of confuses me sometimes. So we can now use socket server. So that's how we can use that. And right now I just went ahead to grab the connections URL and just put it there, and then we call on this. So what I'm going to do is to come over to my server. I'm going to close all the files that we are not going to be using for now. Close user and also register. Then right here, I'm going to require from the middleware folder the socket file, and we're going to pass the app, the IO, and also the database. So we don't actually have that file right now. Let's go ahead and create that. Okay, we do have it, but maybe we didn't get things properly. So I think we didn't get things properly. Yeah. So when we click on that with control, we should be able to come into that file. So right now we are able to do that perfectly, and I'm going to close this and check back in our console. Okay, we don't have any error. Back inside our IntelliJ IDE, let me just go ahead and open that. So right here we are using the socket server, which is going to try to connect. So if everything works perfectly, whenever we come into that user list, we should be able to see at least a socket ID. Then after that, we can now come over and work on our load user. So I'm going to refresh or restart our application. So immediately we logged in. So you could see this connection string. So my English is kind of sounding somehow, permit me for that. So you could see we have that connection string coming from, or the connection ID coming from our print, and everything is working perfectly. So right now, let's go ahead and work on load user. So for the load user, whenever our application opens, this is the first API request that is being done to our Node server. And we said, we did say that whenever it's not working perfectly, we have to whenever we don't have this, the API token confirm, or we got an error, we just have to remove that API token and then redirect to login. So for now, we don't have that. I can just come over here, and what I'm going to do is to come into this login route. I'm going to uncomment this. So what I'm going to do is to create a middleware called auth. So if you already have the boilerplate, most of these things are placed for you there. So I'm just going to pass that auth over there, and I'm going to save. So I'm going to go over to that file. So that file can be found inside middleware auth.js. So let's just go ahead. Sorry for that. Let's just go ahead and explain what this means. So this is like a middleware that has to intercept our routes and perform some actions before we go over to the next thing. So if you notice here, we have the request, the response, and also the next. And we are making that request from our load user. So in our load user, we are passing what is called X signal token from our headers. So that's the token gotten from our local storage. So what we are going to do is right here, I want to grab the token. So let's say grab the token. So we just have to quickly do that from the request header. I want to have access to S signal token, and I have to check if there is a token in case we don't have any token. So if there is no token, we just have to return. We don't even need to use that curly braces. So for some reason, I prefer this way, by the way. So we have status of 401, which is not 200, and we just have to return a message of no token found. So that's in case we don't have a token. Of course, you can make this unpredictable so that somebody doesn't play around with maybe your website or your server email. So we are going to use the try catch block for this one, because we want to use the JWT to check if there is a valid token stored somewhere in the JWT server. So in case there is an error, I just want to return a 400 of JSON with a message of token is invalid. And then for this one, I have to verify the token. So I have to bring down the decoded, which is jwt.verify token config.get, and we have to use the Flutter secrets to grab our own secret code. So I usually forget that I'm not on Flutter, so that's why I usually type that straight down. Then we have to store the signal user. on the header. Yeah, because we are going to be making use of it from here. So we want to be able to pass it to this request header. So what I'm going to do is inside this auth again. So we kind of use this to verify the token. So right here, what you are seeing is that we got a token, we have to use jwt.verify, then we pass the token and then look for our secret key of that token in order to verify it from the JWT server. So I can say request.signal user is equal to the decoded. So the decoded comes with some couple of map values with a key value pairs. Then after that, we have to go over to the next thing if everything went perfectly. I'm going to refresh. So right now, I think we should be able to use that because everything is connected. And yeah, we should be able to use it. So our application refreshed, and first thing is it has to make a request to this user. So for some reason we are not able to make that request, and I think it's because we are not making that request from this onboarding screen. I'm going to come over to our project folder, and right here I think we're actually making the request, but for some reason I don't know why it is not working, because we do have the duration which is going to load user, and then so let's kind of figure out what the problem is then. So guys, when I checked things out, I realized everything was supposed to work perfectly, because if you check here, we don't have something like a 400 status code, and the token happens to be correct because we are still under the proximity of 1 hour. So I think what I have to do here is to set this to 400 because that was the status code I used. Or even if it's not 200, which is still correct, so let's just stick to that. But beneath here, I want to set it in such a way that if everything went through, we should still be able to redirect. So we can use the status code is equal to 200. We have to grab the user info and construct we should be able to grab the user info. Okay, let me kind of do this way. I think using this method is better. So from here, we can construct a user. Then we have the user as well. So right here we have an email from the body. We have the user email. We have the name of that user, and also it doesn't necessarily mean that we must pass the ID. Of course, it's optional. Then we have to store that. Let me kind of check something, guys, so just follow along. So right here, when we load the user, yes, we should be returning some values. Okay guys, let's just move ahead. So in case we experience any error, we are gonna fix it together. So I can use the update new user action and store that user. Then I don't have to type this again. I think I can change this to await, which is better. So I'm going to copy this and paste it here. So guys, this tutorial is taking quite long, but we don't have a choice than to finish that. So we have the users list over here. Okay, that's user list, and I think that should be it because we already have the user, the email, and also the name of that user. I'm going to format our code before we refresh or restart. So guys, I was trying to put myself together. I realized that there are some things I've not yet done. So inside this login, we just checked for that authentication code and assigned the ID to the signal user. So we have to have access to it over here, and then we can now do whatever we want to do. So What we are going to do now, since we are using that ID, we have to make sure that that user do exist in our database. That's if everything passed perfectly. So we have the user ID, because if you check in our console here, I kind of console.log that while I was checking it out. So you could see we have this user ID, and this user ID is the same thing from one of the user IDs from our database. So we have 60C and it stops with 79, while the other one stops with 7A. So over here we are dealing with the first account. So when we find a user, we just want to select everything except for the password, and then we can have access to that user, and then we can use a status code of 200.json of that user, like send that user back. So which is very simple. Then inside our code here, I just have to uncomment this and reset it if it's not 200, like if there's an error, and also in a case that everything works perfectly. So hopefully when I refresh this time around, our application should automatically redirect us to the user list, and if anything's still wrong, we are still going to fix it together. So our application restarted and we had a 200 status code without error, and we were able to redirect to the user list, showing us that everything is working perfectly. So whenever we restart the application, so far the token is still valid with 1 hour time frame, we are going to automatically be redirected to this user list. So that's a good sign that we're making progress. And sorry for that little distraction. I think it's because I've been doing a lot of work, so I didn't actually take a good rest. So it's kind of trying to help me, sorry, not help me a lot. So I'll do my best to make sure that this goes very well. So we are done with that, and right now let's focus mainly on our user chart. So whenever we come over to this user list, we want to grab every user from our database and display that user over here. So what I did was to make sure I added this app bar, because I wouldn't take my time to do that again. I think in the first videos we did, this app bar was already there. So you can just go ahead and check one of our first video. I'm going to put it on the top right side here. So even if I don't remember, maybe I'll put it on the on the description section. So when you watch that, you will realize, you understand how we did some designs. So right here, whenever we come over to the user list, I'm going to quickly refresh. Okay, we already did that refresh, and you can see automatically we are in the user list. So whenever we come here, I want to grab all the user from our MongoDB Compass, all these user, but except this particular user. So that's very simple for us. Let's go ahead and do that. So what I'm gonna do next now is to come above here. So we could say emit to get all users in database except user me, or let's say user.me. Then we can grab this current user. So this current user is just this user information, so we can just go ahead and grab that from our store.state.user. Then we can use the socket.emit get users, and I want to get all users. So I want to get all user, I think excepting this current user. So I can pass the current user email there. So we are going to get that. Then we are going to have gotten users and store them to states, which is going to use socket.on. So when we are going to be emitting from our back end, we are going to be emitting something called all users, an event called all users, which is going to give us access to all users array. So that's it. So let's not just rush things, let's just gradually follow things up from here. So I'm going to emit get users, and right now inside my let me just go ahead and close all these files for now. Yeah, they are no more necessary. So inside our middleware socket.io, so this is where we are going to be doing some little magic or some little things. So right here I can listen for get users. So I'm going to use socket.on get users. So make sure you add these two quotes. The user that is sending that is the sender email, or we can even call it emitter email, which is not wrong. So I'm going to io.emit. So this means that we are emitting to all the users that is using our application, the all users and the data. So I was thinking that I'm going to be making use of this sender email, which is not actually necessary. So you can actually do your filter over here, which is not wrong, using this sender email. You can do your filter so that the particular user that is emitting doesn't return. So if you wish to do that, you can do that. Then here we have to select everything except the user's password. So that's it. And the next thing is, so we already have we have emitted all the users. So right here you could see we are going to catch all the users that is going to be emitted back to us. So this is where all users data type, so kind of confusing also. So we have the all users data type over here, or all user. So you could see the all user over here. So this is where it comes in, and I think I have to use, okay, let's just stick to all user. All user, there's nothing wrong with it. So right here we are going to be creating a new type. I'm going to open the types file. We're going to be creating a new type which is going to be for all users. So beneath this update user action, so we could say store all users and all users action. So I can create a class called update all user action, so which is going to be a list with user data, and then let's just give it all users. Then right here I want to use the constructor update all user, and inside here we can use all users. Then right here we can get all users. So remember that with our getter we are going to be having access to what is passed through this class with our getter, and then we can use it to update our reducer with the all users. So this is kind of cool for Flutter. And I think one more thing I can quickly do is to update current room chat. So just follow along, you're gonna see the reason for that. We have class of update room action, which is a string of room ID, and then we can also create a getter immediately of the room ID, which is this dot room ID, and then we now use the constructor where we are going to be passing the room ID to. So that's it, and we can format our code. So we have the update all user action. So coming back into our user list, so we're going to be making some dispatch from here. So the dispatch is going to be coming to our reducer. So let's just quickly do that. And we cannot just take these all users and store that or dispatch that. We just have to gradually construct our own user. So this is user data, and I'm going to call this one users, which is just an empty list. So right here we have for variable u, in all users, because we don't just want to like dispatch it directly. We have to like populate this empty array, which is a type of this all users. Then we can be able to dispatch that to our reducer. So we have the user data. So the user data is all the users, but individual users. So each individual user is gonna have an ID, email, and also a name. So for the ID, we have the user ID. I think we don't even need to do that. We can just pass it directly. We have the user ID. So why are we getting an error? We shouldn't be getting an error, guys. So let's just quickly finish that. We have the email, and lastly we have the name. So I think I figured out what the error is. When we come over to this, we have ID. So I don't know why, but that shouldn't be an issue. So I can't figure out what the problem is. I'm going to let's kind of add this and see. We have the user data and we made everything optional, and I don't think we should be getting any single error for now, because everything is set up properly. And one more thing I noticed is that, guys, we did something very wrong here. So coming back here, this shouldn't be this way. This shouldn't be this way as well. So whenever we emit to get users, we want to emit back all the users. So we have to make sure that we are using the user schema to get all the user. So we have the error and also the data. So that's it. And we can now use the select over here and get rid of the user's password. So right here, we just have to emit that data. So that should solve it. And I don't think we should have any error in our server again. So coming back here, we don't necessarily know what is the problem, because if you check in our model, we have the ID, the name, and also the email. So maybe I can't tell, but let's kind of find a way to fix that. So I don't think it's accepting the optional values or arguments. So I'm going to clear this from here and format that and check back. So that error goes away. So for some reason, I don't know why it's not accepting the optional arguments. Maybe if you know better, you can put it down on the description, so that will be kind of check it out. Then right here, we just have to populate that users using each of these users. We can now say user.add each of these users, and that's users, and I don't think we should have an error. So we are done with that. So what I want to do now is to filter out this particular user that is actually using the application. That is, let's say I'm the one that logged in. I want to filter out myself from that before I shoot it into the database. So we can do something like this, users.where. So we can say each of these user, then I can refer to each of those user and say, if it's not equal to store.state.user.email. So this is just a user which is the current user using the application, and I will have to convert that to list. And lastly, I can now use store.dispatch new update all user action. Then we have the users. So right now everything is working perfectly, and we can save and give it a refresh. Hopefully we shouldn't get an error. So guys, I checked a lot of things, and The problem was that this current user is not actually getting our email instantaneously. For some reason, I don't know why, but I don't think we need it here. And also, we are able to get the ID, the email, and also the name that is emitted back to us. So at least we now have all the users inside our update user actions. So back in our reducers right now, we just have to update the active users list with the all users. And let's quickly do that. So this one is update error. So for this one is update, we have user action. So guys, now I know why the problem was that we are not able to get the email from our current user. So let me just kind of show you why. Because this current user over here that is supposed to be receiving some user, we have not actually stored any user to it. So if you check in our reducer, we just have the update error. We don't have the update user. But inside our auth actions, we are dispatching that current user to store in our database. So let me just add the ID and the body ID. So we are not even actually storing anything, and that was why. So pardon me for that. Let's still move ahead. So what we are going to do right now is inside our reducer, we have update user action or update a user. I think that would be the best, which is going to take in, sorry for that, if action is, we have update user action. So we have to return that state.copy with, we have the user, which is the action.user. So we have to make sure that that is created. Yeah. So if you come over to our types, we have, we have that user. So that should definitely solve everything. And then what we're gonna do next is to put it down for the update all users. So let's say store all users. So we can say if action is update all user action. Then we have copy with, and then for this one we have action.all users. And then for this one, you have to change this to all users. So you can still go ahead and format, and that should definitely solve it. And back here, so let me kind of undo most of these things I've been doing. Okay, not actually necessarily necessary. Sorry for that. So I can say right here users dot where I still want to filter out my personal user. So there are two ways we can do this. We can do it from here. We can also do it from our widgets. So I can say user dot user dot email is not equals to current user dot email. So hopefully, if everything works fine, I should be able to return one user from there. So let me kind of refresh. So when I checked, I was able to realize that the current user email is actually going through, but the data is returning twice, which is the first user and also the second user. So what you can actually do here to make a return once, you can actually use delay, or let's just leave it here and do it directly on our widget template, which I think is the best. So I just have to dispatch all users and come over to reducer and store all users inside our reducer. So right now we have all the users in the all users list. Let's go ahead and list out all those users over here. So I'm going to scroll down and get rid of this text, and I'm going to bring down a container. So this container is going to have a child of column, and inside that column we're going to have children. So children of list of widgets. So that's it. And what I'm going to do now is right now you could see we are just seeing only user list. We want it in such a way that whenever we open here, we can see something like loading users, or if you wish to add something like a spinner, it's also your choice. So to keep things simple that everyone can understand, we want to show something like loading users. And I'm going to use store connector. So this second time we are using a store connector. And we have also the return type, which is a list of user data. And let's close that and open here. So we have the converter. From our store, we want to have access to store.state.all users. So if it's not the same thing like we did over here, we are going to get an error. Then we have the unwheel change. So let's just keep it there. And that's for keeping sake. We have the previous, the next. So maybe you want to add something like a callback that happens whenever the store connector is triggered. Then lastly, we have the builder, which is going to render one or two things for us. Then here we are going to have access to all the users. So make sure you do things correctly. And right here we have all these. So let me just quickly format that. That's a problem. That's a problem. And I think we should do it this way and try to format again. Still a problem. So where's the problem coming from? So sorry for that. We have store connector. So sorry guys, I don't even shouldn't. I think we have to get rid of that one and format. Okay, back to where we were. So we have the underscore and also all the users, and inside this callback we can say if all the users is equals to null, or if all the users dot length is less than 1, we want to return a container with a child of center. And for this container we want to give it a child of text, so we can give it loading users. So for some reason I don't know why that has to also do that. So we have a container with a child of text. I don't know why. Okay, let's just do this way. So inside this container we are going to have a child with a center widget, and we are going to have a child with a text loading users. So that should definitely solve it. I don't know why we are getting that error. So guys, I think maybe I can use all users is equals to null, maybe. So I don't actually know what's happening here, but I think this is correct. Let's stick to this. If it is less than 1, okay, sorry guys, we didn't have a return type over here, so that's the issue. So right here we have to return a container because we're already in a store connector, and that should also solve that. So this one takes place or happens whenever the all users.length is still less than 1 or let's say equals to 0. So let's just leave it less than 1. Then for this one, we are gonna have a container that is going to now return our design. So what I'm gonna do next here is, let's say I have a child of text of all users found. So let's just do something simple again before we proceed. So I'm going to quickly refresh. So it's going to make that request, and I think we have been doing this for more than 1 hour. We should definitely come to the login screen, and I'm going to log in again and log in again and click on login. So we have loading users, and automatically you see all users found. So that's a very nice improvement, showing us that we're making a very good progress. So right here we are going to get rid of that text. So this is very cool, like the way Flutter is, everything is very cool. So inside here, inside this child, I'm going to give it a list view dot builder. So, but before then, let's kind of break things down here. So I just want to make sure that things are simple. I want to add this give it a pattern of edge instead dot only. Let's give it a top of 10. Then for this list view builder, we have some couple of settings that we're gonna pass here. So we have shrink wrap. We have to set that to true. Then we have the item count. So the item count is going to be our users. So what's going to happen here is we actually want to return. So let me just go ahead and fix this one before we proceed on that, on what I want to say. We have the index. And we can also return one more thing. Let's just say a text. But I don't think it's wise for us to do it that way. So before we proceed, let's just do something. So right here, you could see we are going to be returning all the users, but I don't want to return the actual user that is using that mobile phone, or the user that is currently logged in. I'm going to filter out that user from here. So what I can do is to create a list, a dynamic list called filtered users, which is going to take all users, and we're gonna filter out this particular user. So I want to filter out this particular user, so I can say user.email is not equal to store.state.user.email. So I want to filter out that particular user, and hopefully that shouldn't give us an error, but I don't know why it's kind of trying to frustrate things. And I think we can change this to user data, and let's see the outcome. Okay, not bad, working fine, everything is working fine. And right here, the item count is going to be the filtered users.length. So this is filtered users. So this is camel case. So right now we are back to making our progress. Then for the item builder, we are going to use something like an inkwell. So an inkwell is like a widget that when you click on it, it's kind of like a material button, which is very nice for a list builder. So I want to return that the inkwell widget. So we have shrink wrapper. So sorry for that, guys. So we have shrink wrap, not shrink wrapper. So I usually forget most of these. Then we have to set a splash color. So if you want to set a splash color, you can go ahead and use the color widget, but I'm just going to set this to null. Then the next thing we have to put there is the child. So for the child, we are gonna use an inc also. So this child is gonna have a child of list style. So we have the list style. Then inside that list style, we are gonna have the leading, which is a circle avatar, and we're gonna have a background color of null, a child of text. So inside this text, I'm sure you probably will should understand what should be here. So what is gonna be here is the filtered users index.name. So because this is a circle avatar, we just want like 2 text string inside that circle avatar. So what I'm gonna do here is to use the Flutter substring. So we have to just use the 2, and then I want it to be in uppercase. So that's how we can use that. So we are done with the text, and the next thing we can do now is to add the title. So we have the title widget. The title widget should be outside the circle avatar. So we are gonna give the title filtered index.name. We also have the subtitle. So whatever you want to do, you can add to this one. So we also have the filtered index.name. Then we can add a plus. So it's kind of getting too long. The tutorial is kind of getting too long, but I'm trying to speed things up. So this is small letter, not capital letter. So let's say is on signal. So let's format, and then we're gonna give it a style, with a text style. So this is not a filtered index, it has nothing to do with that. Then we can give it a font size of 12.0, and then beneath that we are going to have what is called the trading widget. So the trading is going to take the column, and there we are going to give it a main axis alignment, which is a main axis alignment or center, and then we have a children. So these children are going to be widgets of list. Then we can give it a new text of the date. So let's kind of save and refresh. So when we refreshed, we are getting this type of error, and I'm sure that one of the issues here is because we are using a data type of user data. So let me kind of change this to dynamic and change this to a list, and then we can use the toList here to change this to a list. So let's save that, and hopefully our application should work this time around. So let's just go ahead and refresh. And one more thing is, for the filter, we should be able to filter out this particular user. We said we want all users except the one that has this particular email. So let's see. So right now it's kind of working nice, but I don't know why we are seeing that sam@gmail.com. We shouldn't see that. So guys, I was trying to figure out how we can avoid the current user using that particular device. So I came up with a solution that we have to avoid it from here if we really want that. So we are checking for that email of the users that we are looping through. So if it is not equal to the current user using this mobile device, then we have to add other users. So right here, all I did was to comment this out and straight away I used all users. So wherever you use filtered users, you can just go ahead and change it to all users. So after our refresh, we only got the other users. So if we have like 4 or 5 users or even 100 users, we are going to see all those users except for the user that is actually using this device. So that's a good progress. So the next thing we are going to do is to be able to click on this, and we are going to go over to the inbox chat. So I have to come over here, and inside this inkwell, I can add an onPress. Sorry for that. So it's called an onPress. So let's put a comma here. Not really an onPress, rather an onTap. And we don't need this build context or anything like that. So right here, whenever we click on it, I want to close this current socket connection that brought all the users for me, and I want to navigate using the push. I want to navigate to a new screen called inbox. So it's going to accept the context and the material page route. So we have the builder, then we have the context. Then here we are going to use the inbox widget. So the inbox widget hasn't been created, or it has been created, but we've not yet added anything to it. So that's it over here. So let's just go ahead and open that inbox widget. So quickly, let's do things that we do for others. So we're gonna use the override. So we are using, right here, we are using just the stateful widget ones. We are not using like the build context. So what I'm just gonna do here is to use the inbox state, and then we have to create state. So right here, you're gonna have a callback of new inbox state, which is going to take some couple of parameters. And before we, sorry for that, before we make use of this inbox state here, we also have to accept some couple of params. So I'm just going to bring down socket. Of course, it's not a parameter, but there are some couple of things. So we have like the sender and receiver. So we have a string of sender. So I called it sender me, and also a string of receiver. So let's format that, and finally we can use the inbox state constructor, and we can also make this optional. But let's just use required, like sender me, and also at required this dot receiver. So that's the two things we are using there. Then inside this our inbox state, I can now pass the sender me to this dot sender me, and also the receiver to this dot receiver. Then you could see we are getting that little error because we've not yet brought in those values from our constructor. So I'm going to use the constructor for this inbox, which is going to take in a key. Then we have required this dot sender me, and also at required this dot receiver. So you use a super key of key. So this is a small letter of key, not just a capital letter of key. Then we're gonna have the final string of sender me, and also the final